What if I told you Spain's most important player of their golden era wasn't Xavi, it wasn't Iniesta, it wasn't Torres? What if I told you the man who turned their tiki-taka from beautiful football into winning football was never truly celebrated like the rest? David Villa Sanchez. When people talk about Spain's greatest, his name isn't always the first to appear. And yet, no one scored more goals for La Roja. No one defined their finishing touch like he did. Villa wasn't the flashy superstar. He didn't own global billboards or headline marketing campaigns. But he owned penalty boxes. He owned moments. He was the difference between beauty and victory. Euro 2008, World Cup 2010, Spain's golden age. Villa wasn't just there. He was crucial. This is the story of a striker who conquered the world without needing the spotlight. This is the story of the goals that built an empire. This is the story of David Villa, the underrated king of Spain's golden generation. David Villa was not born into footballing royalty. He was born in Tuilla, a small mining village in Asturias, northern Spain, a working-class family, a footballing dream. But from the very start, fate almost wrote a different story. At the age of 4, Villa broke his femur, a devastating injury that could have ended any hope of playing football. For most kids, that would have been the end. But Villa wasn't like most kids. His father, a miner, worked night shifts, and by day, he trained his son. Hours and hours of kicking with his left foot because his right was in a cast. That accident turned him into a two-footed striker, a gift that would define his career. Villa often said in interviews that those moments on a tiny patch of grass with his father, not in an academy, built his mentality. I didn't think of quitting, he said years later. Football was everything. He rose through the lower ranks of Spanish football. No glamour, no hype. He started at Sporting Gijón, working his way into the Segunda division. His hunger for goals was relentless. Not flashy, not loud, just efficient, goal after goal. He wasn't the tall, imposing number 9 scouts we're used to. He wasn't blessed with freakish athleticism. But he had something else. Timing. He always seemed to be in the right place, a half second before defenders realized it. Real Zaragoza came calling, and Villa answered. In Zaragoza, he became a lethal weapon. He helped the team win the Copa del Rey in 2004, scoring against Real Madrid in the final. Spain began to notice, but it wasn't until Valencia, a team outside the Real Madrid and Barcelona duopoly, that Villa truly exploded. At the Mestalla, he became one of Europe's deadliest strikers. He scored 25, 22, 18 goals in La Liga seasons, where his club could not match his brilliance. His finishing was clinical, but it was his movement, drifting wide, finding half spaces, timing runs to perfection, that made him unique. While others needed a team built around them, Villa adapted to the team. He didn't demand, he delivered. Outside of Spain, the world was obsessed with bigger names. Henry at Arsenal, Shevchenko at Milan, Ronaldo at Manchester United. Villa was quietly stacking goals in Valencia Orange, waiting. And he wasn't just scoring against small teams. He punished Barcelona. He punished Real Madrid. He scored in derbies, in finals, under pressure. He was already one of the most complete strikers in Europe, but few were paying full attention. Spain had a reputation, a team of talent that always failed on the big stage. Quarter-final exits, heartbreaks, penalty shootouts. For decades, they were the nearly men. But in 2008, something was brewing. A young generation led by Xavi and Iniesta, orchestrated by Luis Aragonés, with David Villa leading the line. Euro 2008 was Villa's coming out party to the world. In Spain's opening match against Russia, Villa scored a hat-trick, 3 goals that oozed composure and timing. He wasn't just finishing chances, he was creating fear. The runs behind defenders, the one-touch finishes, the calm celebration. Spain had found their killer. Strike from anywhere. In a team built on short passes and control, Villa was the blade that turned control into goals. Spain's tiki-taka was still evolving in 2008. It was fluid, but sometimes lacked the cutting edge. Villa gave them that edge. Opposing defenses feared the spaces he attacked more than the midfield carousel around him. Aragonese tactical decision to play Villa next to Torres was crucial. Torres' physicality created space, and Villa exploited it like an artist with a blank canvas. Defenses were stretched, gaps appeared, and Villa punished every inch of hesitation. Even beyond the goals, Villa's movement set the tempo. He didn't wait for chances, he made them. Against Russia, he constantly peeled off defenders. Against Sweden, his stoppage time winner didn't come from luck. It came from anticipation. In the semi-final against Russia, Villa picked up an injury that ruled him out of the final. And yet, his goals had already carried Spain there. Fernando Torres scored the iconic goal in the final against Germany, and the world remembered Torres. But in truth, without Villa's goals, there might not have been a final to win. Euro 2008 ended Spain's trophy drought. It was the birth of their golden era. Villa's fingerprints were all over it. But as the spotlight turned to the midfield maestros and Torres' final strike, Villa's role was already being softened in the global narrative. He didn't care about narratives. He cared about winning. South Africa, 2010, the world's biggest stage. Spain arrived as European champions, carrying the weight of expectation and the dream of history. And once again, David Villa was ready. Spain's campaign began in shock, a 1-0 defeat to Switzerland. Questions swirled. Could this team handle the pressure? Could tiki-taka translate into World Cup glory? The answer, again and again, came from Villa's right or left foot. Against Honduras, Villa scored twice. The first, a solo masterpiece, gliding past defenders, cutting inside and smashing it home. The second, a typical Villa finish, clinical, no hesitation. Against Chile, he scored again, a long-range strike that curled into the net with ice-cold precision. Spain advanced, not with fireworks, but with Villa's goals keeping the dream alive. Then came Portugal in the round of 16. It was cagey, nervous, and then, in the 63rd minute, Villa broke through. A quick exchange with Xavi and Iniesta, a first shot parried, and then, bang, top of the net. Spain won, Portugal 0, quarter-final, Paraguay. Nerves at breaking point, missed penalties. The world was watching a giant crumble. But Villa didn't. In the 83rd minute, the ball pinballed through the box, and there he was, off the post, off the bar, in. 1-0, Spain into the semi-final. Every single knockout game was decided by a single Spanish goal. Villa scored in every single one except the final. That's not just impact, that's legacy. Villa didn't just score goals, he relieved pressure. His strikes gave Spain the breathing room to play their football. He turned tense chess matches into controlled victories. What made Villa's World Cup run so extraordinary was how perfectly it balanced with Spain's system. While Xavi and Iniesta hypnotized defenses with passing triangles, Villa punished the tiny gaps they left. He drifted left, then cut inside. He occupied centre-backs, but never stayed still. He turned a possession team into a goal-scoring machine. Even in matches where Spain dominated the ball but couldn't find a breakthrough, Villa was the difference between almost and through. He didn't need 5 chances. He needed 1. And maybe most impressively, Villa did all this in a tournament dominated by defence. Goals were scarce. Space was limited. Yet Villa shone brightest. 5 goals. All decisive. Without Villa, Spain's tiki-taka might have been just beautiful football. With Villa, it became world champions. When Iniesta scored in the final, the cameras followed him. But Villa's fingerprints were on the path that led there. He didn't need the glory. He had already delivered the destiny. After conquering the world with Spain, David Villa finally got his move to a global powerhouse. In 2010, Barcelona signed him for €40 million. Pep Guardiola's Barcelona was at its peak. Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Alves. It was a footballing machine. And Villa was the final piece. He adapted instantly. Unlike other big signings, he didn't demand to play centrally. He played wide lefts, made diagonal runs, stretched defenses. He sacrificed personal glory for the team's perfection. And yet, he still scored 23 goals in his first season, and one of the most iconic goals in the Champions League final. Wembley, 2011. Barcelona versus Manchester United. Messi had already struck. Then came Villa, a curling beauty into the top corner. 3-1, game over. Barcelona conquered Europe. What made Villa's time at Barcelona so remarkable wasn't just the goals. It was how seamlessly he fit into a system that wasn't built for a traditional striker. He didn't need everything to go through him. He made Messi better. He made the midfield's job easier. He was the silent key to their balance. His work rate off the ball often went unnoticed, tracking back, pressing, sacrificing his position for Messi's freedom. He was doing the unglamorous work that superstars rarely do. In a team of geniuses, Villa was the glue that held the front line together. But even at Barca, Villa remained in the shadows. Messi's brilliance consumed the spotlight. Villa was the reliable blade, not the shining sword. Then came the cruel twist. December 2011, Club World Cup semi-final. A broken tibia, a devastating injury, months on the sideline. When he returned, Barcelona had evolved. Pedro and Alexis were competing for minutes. Neymar was on the horizon. Villa was no longer the centerpiece. Still, he contributed, scoring crucial goals in his comeback season. He won La Liga, Copa del Rey, and more trophies. But you could feel it. The story was quietly fading. In 2013, he left for Atletico Madrid. His final act in Spain was poetic, helping Atletico win La Liga against Barcelona at the Camp Nou, a moment of quiet revenge and poetic closure. Villa had spent a career making teams better, but teams rarely revolved around him. That was his strength and his curse. After leaving Spain, David Villa became a global ambassador of his own talent. In MLS with New York City FC, he became league MVP, scoring 80 goals in 4 seasons. He showed that class was timeless. He finished his international career with 59 goals in 98 caps, the highest in Spain's history. More than Raúl, more than Torres, more than Morata. But when football fans list the great strikers of the modern era, Villa's name is too often missing. Why? Because Villa didn't fit the mold of a global superstar. He wasn't loud. He wasn't a marketing phenomenon. He was quiet, clinical, a soldier in service of his team. But numbers don't lie. Euro 2008 Golden Boot, 5 goals at the 2010 World Cup, Spain's all-time top scorer, Champions League, La Liga, Copa del Rey, World Cup, Euros, won it all. His movement changed games. His finishing decided trophies. His legacy lives not in highlight reels of stepovers, but in the silent terror of defenders who knew that one chance was enough. Villa's greatness is not just statistical. It's symbolic. He was the bridge between traditional strikers and modern fluid forwards. He could play as a 9, a second striker, or a left forward. He was what every tactical system needs: intelligence and execution. More than anything, Villa proved that you don't need to be the loudest to be the deadliest. He thrived in silence. He destroyed defenses with elegance, not chaos. His runs were poetry in motion, his finishes cold-blooded. His legacy isn't just about goals, it's about impact. He didn't chase fame, he chased trophies. And in doing so, he became a symbol of quiet excellence. Even today, in tactical analysis circles, Villa is studied not for tricks or flicks, but for positioning, intelligence, and decision-making. In many ways, David Villa was the perfect striker for Spain's golden generation. Unselfish in a team built on passing and patience. Sharp in a team that needed a killer. Spain's tiki-taka might have dominated possession, but it was David Villa who made it count. Today, as Spanish football moves forward, his record still stands. A reminder that true greatness doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers through the net. This is David Villa's legacy. The underrated king, the silent finisher, the man who conquered the striker world. If you enjoyed this video on David Villa, remember to hit that like button and hit subscribe to stay tuned for more stories of footballers who shaped the game. And you can check out our other videos here.